Hi, I'm Gary White for Channel 6 Central Kentucky Television, and we are celebrating Mother's Day. And today I am fortunate enough to have 4 famous television moms with me that we're going to get to talk to. And I have Karen Grassle, who was Caroline Ingalls on Little House on the Prairie, that we're going to get to talk to. I have Dee Wallace, who was the mom on E.T., the extraterrestrial. I believe everybody knows your famous film son, Elliot, right? On that movie? Yes.
I'm glad you said Elliot and not E.T.
Yes. And also, I believe you were on the new Lassie as well, correct?
Oh, yes.
So we can maybe talk about...
A lot of TV moms for 40 years.
Yes. And we also have Ilene Graff, who played Marcia Owens on Mr. Belvedere. So that was nice having staff, huh?
Having staff? Oh my gosh, yes. Where are they now? I'm doing all the cooking and cleaning. What's going on here? I don't know.
And we also have Michael Learned, who played Olivia Walton on The Waltons. Thank you very much for being here with us. And we're going to get an opportunity to talk because it's Mother's Day coming up. And all of you, I believe, we're going to take part in a special tribute to 100 celebrity moms that was going to take place at the Hollywood Museum this weekend. But because of the pandemic and the COVID-19 situation, that was postponed. So unfortunately, that's not happening. But I believe you were able to maybe contribute and share some stories about your experience. So how about if we just start off, if we could, kind of working our way in a little circle, talking about your experience as a TV mom for us. And then also, I believe you're all real life moms too. And tell us how that was a little different. Maybe we'll start with Michael there. Michael Learned, if you could tell us, you were on the Waltons. How did that all happen? How did you get to take part with the Waltons?
Well, I drove down to, I was working at ACT in San Francisco, the American Conservatory Theater. And I drove down to LA just to learn the freeways in case an audition could happen. And while I was here, I was staying with a friend, and my agent called and said, you know, that part for the show called The Waltons is still up, and you're going to go see about it. And I said, but I'm not right for it. I'm too young. I have short blonde hair. I'm not right for it. Don't make me go through an audition for something I know I'll never get. He said, well, you're going anyway. So I went.
Hello?
Am I too long-winded?
Not at all.
So anyway, I showed up, which is the bottom line for actors, I guess, is to show up, and which I did. And it was a room full of guys that all looked very important and successful. And I kind of stood there feeling like an idiot. And I got a call saying, you don't even have to we want you to test with Richard and Ralph, but you don't have to audition. And so I did a test with Ralph and Richard, and they were both wonderful. And I just pretended we were on stage because I hadn't done television in a long time, and I forgot I was supposed to hit marks and things like that. But they were there. They were so present, and we just did a little scene. Really was one line I did. I think I said, here are your clothes for college, John Boy, or something like that. It was just nothing. And about a week later, this call comes, and my agent said, you have the part. You're the Mother of America. And this was before you, Karen. So at that time, I was the Mother of America. Now we're 4 Mothers of America. But so that was just a thrill. I really needed. I was stone broke, and I was drinking too much, and I was going through a divorce, and I was really a wreck. And suddenly I get this lifesaver, which I feel was the hand of God on my shoulders.
Now, at that time, were you a real life mother already by that point?
I had 3 teenage sons. Well,
okay.
2 teenage sons and 1 9-year-old. And yes, my boys were my joy in my life and still are. In fact, I just had an hour talk with 2 of my sons today. And we talked for an hour. So I probably won't get any calls on Mother's Day. But today was Mother's Day for me.
That's fabulous. That's wonderful. And we have our mother from here at Channel 6. We have Yvonne McNary as well, who is with us, who is a mother as well. Is going to be contributing to the conversation with us. So we were talking about how you got started with the Waltons. Now, I know after you completed the Waltons, you actually did some movies as well, and I believe one of them was called Mother's Day on Walton Mountain. Is that correct?
I don't even remember. Maybe. I don't know. I don't remember Mother's Day on Walton's Mountain. Every day was Mother's Day on Walton's Mountain.
There you go.
And still is. You know, we're like a second family. When I got 30 years ago or something, I got remarried, and all my Waltons kids were there, as were my own.
That's fabulous. So you have 3 sons of your own. How many were there on the Waltons? How many Walton kids were there?
7. Yep, 7. And they all turned out pretty good, so I must have done a good job.
Now, did the fact that you already had kids, did that help you in preparing to be the mom on the Waltons?
I think so, absolutely. And I think, you know, the negative was that I was on a set for so many hours a day, and I'd come home and my 3 sons would be standing in the doorway with all their questions or problems that they had for me that I wasn't there to answer at that time. So we paid a price, and they paid a price, but they turned out pretty well too. So
what did they think of you being the mom to other kids, to kids other than them?
I don't think they really thought much about it at all. They liked all the kids on the Waltons, and you know, I think the thing that bothered them most was that I was away for so many hours. I don't know if the rest of you ladies who played mothers had the same thing. You know, it was long hours on a set when you're doing an hour show. Mm-hmm. And luckily I lived nearby, so after a while, I was able to kind of work things out where if I was off for 3 or 4 pages, they would let me go home for a little while, and then I'd come back on the set. I'd keep my makeup on and everything, and they were very understanding about that. And
that's great.
So
that's great.
Now, was working with the kids a little difficult as far as the schedule goes, as far as, you know, so many hours they can work per day, or, you know, compared to you as being an adult? Did that ever become a problem?
Well, the hours are hard and long when you have other things pulling at you. You know, when you promised your kids you'd take them to the dentist at 3 o'clock, and then you have to call them and say, no, I'm going to have to send somebody to pick you up and take you, and I can't make it. You know, I think that was hard. That was a tug. Now I'd be thrilled to spend 14 hours on a set. But back then, you know, it was a little different.
Uh-huh.
That's great. Well, thank you very much. We're going to work our way through hearing the beginning stories for each of you, and then we're going to talk a little bit more about your experience as well. So, as you said, let's move on now to Little House on the Prairie, and we have the mother from Little House on the Prairie, Karen Grassle, who played Caroline Ingalls. And how did it start for you with Little House on the Prairie?
And hi, Yvonne.
Hi, how you doing?
Glad you made it on.
Yes, made it back.
So, for me, I had come out to Los Angeles from New York to do an independent feature. And I was really excited about that because I, like Michael, was flat broke. I mean, broke. So I was thrilled. I was going to get some work and maybe even get some name value. And the movie fell through. When I called to say, well, isn't it time to have costume fittings? They said, don't call us.
Oh, God.
There I was. So I got a loan from my mom. I had new pictures made, and I took those to my agent. And it wasn't too long before they called and said, Michael Landon, you know, from Bonanza was going to do this new series. And I was so disconnected to popular culture at that time that I said, well, which one was he? You know, of the brothers. And so then they told me, and I said, oh, little Joe, yeah, cute. So I went to meet them, and I had a unique experience because usually, you know, you go up for a part, there are all these other lovely looking actresses in the room, and you look around and you think, oh, that one's hair is so nice. That I should have worn an outfit like that. And that day, there was no one. I just sat there. I thought, this is something very odd going on here. And then they called me in, and we had an interview, and they said the question that we all love to hear. Tell us a little about yourself. Yeah. So I told them about my Broadway debut that closed in 5 days and other exciting things from my glamorous career. And they thanked me very much, and I left. And before I even got home, they were calling saying, well, we want her to come back tomorrow and read. So in those days, there was no faxing. There was no scanning. There was get in the car and drive back in rush hour and get the sides and bring them home and prepare. And I was very excited. I thought, gosh, I haven't done primetime television, but I think I have an idea about it. Mm-hmm. So I went back and I read, and first one scene with Mike, and then another scene with Mike, and then he leapt off the floor, I mean, like a jack in the box, and said, send her to wardrobe. I was like, did I just get the part? And then our producer, Ed Friendly, said, Mike, excuse me a minute. And Karen, would you wait for us? They took me into Michael's office to have me wait, and I thought, uh-oh, something's wrong here. And then they had me come back, and they were very polite and said, thank you very much. And I thought, what happened? But it turned out that what it was Ed Friendly knew that we needed NBC's approval because nobody had any idea who Karen Grassle was. So they set up a closed-circuit TV interview with me for the day after Christmas. And Michael, what I did the night before was I watched your Christmas special on this little black and white TV that I had, with no cable, practically all snow, but I'm listening to you. I'm thinking, now, I'm pretty sure Little House is something like this. So I'll study this tonight, and then I'll go in tomorrow. And that's what I did, and then I did get the part.
Fantastic.
Great story. Yes. Thank you. That's wonderful. And
now, when you went in, did you think you had a chance to get the role, or was it all a surprise to you as well?
When I first went in, I had no idea, and I was extremely nervous. But by the time they got to this closed-circuit interview, I knew I was the only candidate. And I knew that Mike wanted me. He brought with him, he brought hair and makeup man. He brought a cinematographer. He was going to see that I looked good, you know. And so with him on my side, you know, I knew I had a pretty good chance.
Fantastic. Thank you very much. That's a great story. Thank you.
Yes, it is.
Yes. Well, we're going to go to Dee Wallace, if we could, to hear your story. Now, your story is with film, right? For the beginning with E.T. And as I said at the beginning, your son, I think everybody my age at the time was saying Elliot, like E.T. used to say it. But tell us about how that happened.
You do it very well.
Oh, thank you.
Come on, Elliot. Come on.
And do you still eat Reese's Pieces? Is that what it was? That was the big candy in that movie?
Of course. And you know, an interesting story is they took it to M&M's first. And M&M's didn't want their product to be associated with an alien. But I thought, you know, the day after that film came out, somebody got fired. For sure.
Yes.
Absolutely.
So, you know, I originally had auditioned for used cars. which is a film that Stephen did previously. And fortunately, did not get that one. He called, and when they were ready to do E.T., just offered it to me. So you didn't know that? No. Eileen is like,
oh, I am agog and so happy for you.
yeah. And so I said, well, I need to read the script. And my agent said, what do you mean you need to read it? It's Steven Spielberg. I said, and I'm Dee Wallace, and I need to know I can give Mr. Spielberg, you know, what he wants. So I went in behind locked doors and read the script and called my agent and said, you know, I don't think it's going to do a lot for me, but I think it's going to do a lot for the world. And I was right. And I want to be a part of it. And that's how it all went down.
Wow.
That's beautiful.
Yeah, it's a real Hollywood story, really.
That's a great story. That's a great story. And it went on to be one of the biggest films of all time at that time, correct?
Still is one of the biggest films of all
Yeah.
time.
Huge. Yeah.
Yes, indeed.
Fantastic.
And I can't tell you, you know, because I travel so much, I do conventions and personal appearances, how many heart-moving stories I hear about the effect that that film has had on people's lives. It's quite amazing. I had a mom come up to me with tears in her eyes. Her son was a 10-year-old autistic boy. She had never, ever heard him speak. And she took him to see the re-release of E.T. And on the way home, he started saying every line E.T. said.
Oh my God. Oh,
I mean,
that gives me chills.
Imagine as a mother,
Yes.
sitting there and hearing your child talk for the first time.
Yeah.
You know, and I just hear that, stories like that everywhere I go about this movie. It just, and I think that's one thing we all have in common, ladies, is that we all played characters in projects that that really brought a mother's heart in some way, and the love, the unconditional love, you know, that a mother has. And that's what it's all about for me.
Absolutely. Absolutely.
Beautiful.
Now, you also on TV, they were talking about, you were the mother in the new Lassie, correct?
Oh, and Together We Stand. And honey, I've been a mom for 40 years. After E.T., before E.T., I played hookers, I played killers, I played space astronauts. And then E.T. came out, they went, well, she's a mom.
Once a mom, always a mom.
I'm telling you, but you know, it's served me
So
well.
you think you got typecast there for a while?
You think? You think? Yes. And I think, thanks to Rob Zombie, I'm moving out of it a little bit now. But still, when they think of, you know, and I bet you could ask every lady on this show, when they think of warm, sensitive, open-hearted women to play a part, they come to one of us.
Yes.
For sure. Could be a lot worse. They could be looking for ugly women and come back.
You wouldn't get that part.
None of us would. None of us would.
Not at all. Now, we also have Ilene Graff, who played the part of Marcia Owens on Mr. Belvedere.
Yes. Yes. Well, hello.
And Mr. Belvedere, that was about a butler, correct?
Mr. Belvedere, he was our housekeeper. He came to live. We were a family of 5 living in outside of Pittsburgh, and the family was in chaos, and we needed help, and decided to hire a housekeeper. And Mr. Belvedere shows up in the body of Christopher Hewitt, a very proper, big Englishman, and he whoops us into shape over the course of 6 seasons.
How was it working with a housekeeper? That would have been nice. I've never had a housekeeper.
You know, as you all know, my friends here who've been on other shows, we are so ridiculously spoiled when we're on a project. Everybody does everything for you. You don't have to put on your own shoes. You don't have to put on your own eyelashes. I mean, there's somebody there to do, oh, could you go get me a coffee? Well, I would be happy to get you a coffee. You don't have to do anything but your job, and they spoil you rotten. So you get,
and then it's over.
and then it's over. It's over. But I did have a housekeeper at the time because I really needed help. I had a little kid. My daughter was 15 months old when we started the show. So I had a little kid and a husband who was working like crazy, and we needed some help. So we had a housekeeper, and she would always tell people proudly that she was Mrs. Belvedere.
Aw, sweet.
That's great. That's great. So that's a long run too for 6 seasons. How long were each of your shows? You had Mr. Belvedere was about 6 years, did you say?
It was 5.5 seasons, yeah.
Mhm.
Yeah.
That's a great run for a show.
Usually Waltons territory or Little House territory, but it served me well.
Absolutely. Now, Michael, how long did the Waltons run?
The Waltons was on for 9 seasons, I believe.
That's a long time.
Wow.
Actually, it went on 2 seasons after I left, so I guess it was 10 altogether. I just put you on.
And then Little House, how long did Little House on the Prairie run for?
We did 8 seasons, and then they went on to create something called Little House: A New Beginning that didn't last. And then we did some specials after the 8.
Yeah.
Okay. So
Now that doesn't include the reruns that we see now. So you guys are still running.
It's incredible, isn't it? I mean, to think of being in our 3rd generation. I mean, I knew that it would be probably successful. I thought, well, it might run 3 years. And now we're in our 3rd generation.
Mm-hmm.
It's amazing.
Wow.
And that's what's great too, the longevity that all of your shows have, that you still have people that are just beginning to watch it today for any of the shows or movies that you're involved in. How is that when people come up to you what's that experience like for any of you when they come up to you and talk about these famous characters that you've portrayed?
It's really cool. There are some people that you read about saying, oh, why doesn't anybody know me for anything else? And they get a little bent out of shape. To me, there's nothing more dear, similar to what Dee was saying, and I'm sure Karen and Michael have the same experience. There's nothing more dear than when a grown-up person comes up to you, and I hope they don't do it anymore, but throw their arms around you and give you a hug and say, you don't understand how much you meant to me when I was growing up. I came home from school every day. My mother wasn't home. I was a latchkey kid. I sat at the kitchen table. I watched you every day, and I felt that you helped raise me. And it's so hard for us that do the work to understand that, because for us, we go to work, we're hanging out with our friends, we do our shows, we do a good job for sure. But when you do a show, as I'm sure we all feel, we don't know the impact that we're having because we live in a bubble on the set. You're in an absolute bubble. And then years later, people are still thanking you for what you gave them. And I think it's really wonderful.
It does. It really touches your heart to realize how many hearts you've touched.
Yeah.
Another story, I had a young gentleman come up to me and say, Miss Wallace, I lived in a very small town in the South, and my parents got divorced when I was 10 or 11, and I became an outcast because of the religious leanings. And back then, we were the first family, and people wouldn't talk to me, and I didn't have any friends, and then E.T. came out. And all of a sudden, it was okay. It was okay, and it was okay to bring me back into the fold. And I think we don't realize the impact in lives and in society that we have about opening people's minds and opening their hearts and saying, look, we're real people here. You know, married, divorced, happy, sad, sick, well, whatever. We're really one. We're one energy that needs to come together. And, you know, this virus, I got to say, one of the positive things coming out of it is that it's making people really look at the important values of who they are again. And creating some amazing creative output. I would just like us to get to the point after this that we don't need a virus to come out on our balconies and play music together.
Right.
Yeah.
You know,
Beautifully said. Beautifully said.
we just do it because it makes us feel good and we can connect in love.
As we said, this is Mother's Day weekend, and we're doing this for our Mother's Day show. How is this Mother's Day going to be different for you, for all of you, as the world is going through this pandemic? We can't actually reach out and touch, but are you doing something differently with all of your children for this weekend?
My son asked me, what about Mother's Day? And I was like, I know what I want. I want to go for a walk up there on the golf course that is open now for us because it's closed for golfing.
Mm-hmm.
And it's wonderful because it's easy to social distance there. There's lots of space. And as we walk up, we start to get a view of the whole Bay Area. It's just beautiful. And my son and I walk and just talk about things we might never talk about if we were on the little routine walk in the neighborhood where I live.
Well, I'm serving this weekend. My daughter and her guy are moving into their new home, first home they bought. And he has a beautiful 7-year-old little girl. We've all been self-quarantining, so I'm going to take her for the day. I can't tell you guys how excited I am to be able to be the mom again for a 7-year-old. I ordered face paints and body paints. I've got a sign to make for all the workers. We're going to order Subway and take it to the firemen. We're going to paint our bodies. We're going to have a scavenger hunt. I mean, she's probably going to leave my house going, oh my God, thank God they're picking me up. But I'm so excited to get to do all that stuff that I did with my kid, you know? Well, that's the plan.
That's great. That is very great. And again, we're talking with famous TV moms that we have had the opportunity to talk to for this Mother's Day, for our Mother's Day show. Mm-hmm. And, you know, you're famous for the movies or TVs that you're on, but you also do a whole lot of other things, obviously. And a lot of you are involved in some interesting projects now as well that we want to talk about. And I believe with Ms. Graff that you wanted to talk a little about the Actors Fund. And if I'm not wrong, didn't you might have met your husband on Broadway, is that correct?
Yes. I was playing Sandy Dombrowski in Grease on Broadway. And my husband was in the pit playing the piano and conducting. And it's now 42 years later.
Yay!
That's great.
He's a Hollywood composer. You know, he's written the music to lots and lots of TV shows and nothing that you have done. He wrote music for Mr. Belvedere. He didn't write the song, but he wrote a lot of music for Mr. Belvedere. But yeah, we still feel connected to the New York theatrical community. My daughter is a musical theater performer who was in an off-Broadway show that closed because of the virus.
Oh.
Yeah, it was so sad. It was a great show. They were getting great reviews, and then it was like, it's over. Happily, we were able to go see it in New York before it closed. And these are her Mother's Day flowers that she sent me. Aren't they pretty?
Oh, yes, how nice.
Yeah. So there's an organization that I'm an officer of called the Actors Fund, which is a social service charity organization that serves every entertainment professional in the United States and Canada. And not a lot of people think, oh, it's just for Broadway actors. Well, that's not true. Actually, we have gotten during this crisis twice as many calls for help from the Western Division than we have back east. So Gary and everybody at your station qualifies if you're an entertainment professional in any business in any part of the country. If you need help, anybody that you know in your area, they can go to actorsfund.org and look for help. If anybody who appreciates the work that you do and your colleagues do, they are more than welcome to go to actorsfund.org and make a little donation. But we have so far in the past 7 weeks distributed over $8 million, which is far, far more than we usually do in a year. So, and so many top drawer entertainers are really coming up strong for the Actors Fund. Rosie O'Donnell did an online, I don't know what to call it. She did her talk show, and all the proceeds went to the Actors Fund. So people in our entertainment community have been very responsive. And as Dee said, people are being so creative about using their talents for good right now and helping our brothers and sisters in whatever business you are, helping our frontline workers, wherever your heart sits. It's been very gratifying to see that people are stepping up and doing what they can, whether it's sending Subway sandwiches to the fire station or raising millions of dollars for charity. Everything that everybody does is essential and helps. And you want to be selfish about it, makes you feel better that you're contributing. So thank you for asking about that. I appreciate it.
Absolutely. I believe Seth Rudetsky is doing some shows for the Actors Fund as well that I've watched with reunions from different programs, which is kind of fun too.
Every single day, he's been doing a show, an online show with, they're coming up with such creative reunions. Our dear friend Charlene Tilton did, they did a Dallas reunion. They're just doing such wonderful things and getting the word out that whatever you can do to help is appreciated in whatever sector you're helping.
Absolutely.
Eileen, that's a wonderful explanation of the fund. Correct me if I'm wrong. I think the way it was started was there was a man who had been an actor, and when he died, they found a shoebox full of money, and he designated this for actors because in those days you had to walk from office to office to present yourself. It was called making the rounds. And he wanted actors to be able to have money for new shoes because they wore out their shoes.
Well, to this day, there is a shoe fund at the Actors Fund for people who need shoes. Actors who, and it did start from that, but the original impetus was the Actors Fund was that actors were not allowed to be buried in proper cemeteries because we were tainted. And there were a lot of people that had no place to be buried. So Edwin Booth, who was a great actor, started this fund so that there could be, we could be treated with dignity in society. And it's grown to be this fabulous organization. But yes, indeed, there's still a shoe fund, Karen.
Awesome.
What's the website?
I donated, Eileen.
Thank you, Dee.
I always, whenever I get the little thing, I donate.
And can
We
people
appreciate it.
go to Actors Fund, is there an Actors Fund website and contribute?
Right, actorsfund.org.
Actorsfund.org, great. Thank you very much. That's great.
Thank you.
Thank you. And speaking of theater, we want to talk too with Karen Grassle. You actually lived for a little bit in Louisville, which is around our area, I believe, and worked with the Actors Theater in Louisville. Can you tell us a little about your experiences with Actors Theater here?
Yes, this was after Little House on the Prairie, and I had worked with the artistic director, John Jory, early in my career, and I was longing to go back to the theater. The marriage that I had made at the end of that show did not work out, and I was just longing to go back into the professional theater. So I called John and said, listen, I don't really know those artistic directors anymore. Who do you think it would be great for me to work with? And he said, are you available? And I said, yeah. So I flew out to talk with him, and I did an audition, and then he called me and he said, you know, you did an audition for me. I'd like to do an audition for you. So could you come tomorrow morning and we'll do some work together? And that's what we did. And that just seemed like an ideal way to figure out if I should go there. So they helped me find a school for my kiddo, and I moved to Louisville, Kentucky. And it was such a marvelous opportunity for me, because I was able to do the classics, and to do brand new plays in the Humana Festival, and work with authors that I admired. It was just creatively excellent. Plus, I could be in a safe town, a good school for my little kid, and be home much of the time.
And I hope you liked Louisville as well.
Oh, Louisville's a beautiful, beautiful town.
It is.
Now, how long did you stay?
I was there 6 years.
Wow.
Yes. So you
It
got to
has a
experience.
great film festival too, doesn't it?
That's a what?
Great film festival also.
I'm afraid I didn't know that.
Yeah.
Yes, and we have several, and we also have the Derby normally in May, but this year the Kentucky Derby didn't take place because it's going to be in September because of the pandemic. But usually you have,
Oh,
yes, hopefully in September they'll be able to have that as well. But we're very excited to know that you were in our community for quite a period of time there. And working
Yeah.
with-
She could be an honorary Louisvillian.
yes, absolutely.
I still have really good friends there. I was able to visit with some of them this past fall. I went to Danville to do a small independent feature, and they were able to drive over and visit on my day off. It was just wonderful.
Oh,
Fantastic.
great.
Now, also, we're talking about Mother's Day this weekend, but also this week is Nurse Appreciation Week. And I know, Ms. Learned, Michael, you did a show called Nurse, I believe, after the Waltons as well, didn't you?
I did.
Yes.
And I think it was a very good show, actually. I'm sorry it was canceled. I made
It was
a
a
big
good
mistake.
show.
Oh, thank you. I made a big mistake on that show. My producer at the time told me to walk off the set because I wanted New York writers because it was a New York show. And we were getting scripts from Los Angeles that said Mary goes home to her Harlem apartment and soaks in her hot tub. There are no hot tubs in Harlem, you know? There were no locks on the door. You know, this is a nurse, a middle-aged woman alone living in Harlem. In New York, there were no locks on the, you know, just all those little details that drove me crazy. So I was a pain in the ass, I have to say. But and then finally the producer said, if you want New York writers, you're going to have to walk off the show. So I did. And then the show was canceled. I pissed the wrong people off, you know.
now
Pardon my language, but
you were an artist who was doing her job.
thank you.
I watch some of these things these days and I go, why didn't the actor say something? Why didn't the director say something? But then I get on the set and I do say something and the director says something and the producers go, well, that's the way we wrote it.
Yep. Nowadays,
Yeah, it's very different today.
Yep. Well, Robert Reed and I used to sit in the corridor before a scene and just rewrite as we were going along because some of it just made no sense. I mean, we were shooting in a hospital, and we actually were shooting in a hospital in New York. There were cockroaches crawling up the walls. I mean, it was my dressing room was a patient's room with a couch that came from the Salvation Army and a glass table that came from God knows where, probably the same place. And so we had a lot of battles we had to fight, both of us, and we wanted to do a really gritty show because I was told it was going to be like that wonderful show called Hospital. I think it was a movie, and suddenly I'm blanking on the name of the star, a wonderful actor. But anyway, that's what I was told it was going to be, and then we were getting scripts where she might have to have a hysterectomy, so she sells all her satin bedroom slippers and negligees. And I said, middle-aged nurses don't have time for negligees and little pom-poms on their bedroom slippers. So little things like that just made me crazy. And
I would have walked off right with you, dude.
Thank you. And Robert Reed as well. He would roll his eyes, and just go, "Oh my God, I can't say this." But then they did get New York writers, and they were wonderful writers, and the show should have gone on. And I'm very sorry that they canceled it because I think it could have been with the New York writers who knew what they were writing. They knew New York, so they were writing a show for New York, which is what it was. And I was very disappointed that it was canceled, but, that's life. Piss the wrong people off, you're in trouble.
Indeed. Now, you ladies
I did have an angel at CBS years ago named Ethel Wine, and I always want to mention her name because she was just a saint as far as I'm concerned, and she went to bat for women, and she was just, so you know who I'm talking about, you guys.
Yes.
Fabulous woman.
Yeah. And I owe her a great deal because I gather Fred Silverman did not think I was right for the Waltons, and she had come she was a theater person. She used to come up to ACT and see the shows, and she fought him to the ground to get me that part. And I don't think it was, I saw a screening of my, Donna Shore had it on her talk show. She showed a screening of my audition, my screen test. It was terrible. I wouldn't have given me the part. But Ethel Wynant went to bat for me, and God bless her. I say a thank you prayer to her every day.
Wow, that's awesome. We all won with that one, baby.
Yeah.
Yeah. It's good to have an angel on your shoulder.
Yeah.
A human angel.
You've all had really great careers in show business, but over the years, has there been maybe one thing that you wish you hadn't done?
I'm sorry.
Just one.
Pardon me, I'm hanging up right now.
Your lesson about what you say and what you don't say.
How much time have you got? This is Michael speaking. How much time have you got?
I'm with you, Michael. But I remember this really horrible movie that I did with Tony Curtis at the end of his career. And there was a reviewer in Texas going, "Why would Dee Wallace do this? This is an embarrassment. Why would she lower herself?" Well, you know why? Because I was raised by my grandma, and nobody else in my family could take care of my grandma. And I had to make enough money to keep her in her home so she didn't have to go into a retirement facility. And I was willing to do anything I had to do to keep
Good for you, Dee.
in her home.
Mm-hmm.
And sometimes, I think everybody just doesn't realize, like, we've been talking about how torn we were about going to work and leaving our kids at home and how much time we had to take away from them. And we're people. We're people with the same challenges and opportunities.
We were also, I'm very grateful that I wasn't in the beginning of the Waltons, but eventually I was well paid for my time. But you really do give up your life when you're doing an hour show, no matter what show it is. Your life is about that show, and you do not have your own life. You don't. You may plan for tomorrow they're going to shoot outdoors, and then it rains, and they're not shooting outdoors, so they're shooting indoors. So suddenly you're working, and you didn't think you were, and you have to tell your kids, "Sorry, I can't take you to the dentist like I said I would. I got to go to the studio." So really they own you, and that's not a bad thing. It's just that it's good that we get well paid for it. I think we deserve it because we do give up our own lives to do an hour show.
Well, you know, there's another aspect too, and I think that is that actors really love to work.
Yeah.
Sometimes people will say to me, why did so-and-so do that job? And I'd say, because they love to work.
Yeah.
And
Yes.
it's an aspect to the passion that we have for our profession that is also a reason why we go to work sometimes and maybe don't use the best judgment.
Absolutely. But really good point.
And
I miss doing theater. When I first got the Waltons, it seemed like all I did was pour. I don't know about you, Karen, but it seemed like all I did was pour coffee because they wanted my presence in the scene. They wanted to have Mom around working at the stove or kneading bread or pouring coffee. I poured so much coffee, it became a joke after a while. In fact, I put it in one of my contracts, no pouring coffee this season. And
So they had me pour coffee so often that one Christmas I had coffee mugs made for everybody and a picture of myself as Ma, and it said, "More coffee, dear."
There you go.
That's the line they gave me, you know. "More coffee, dear."
Right.
Now, I know,
Yeah.
Ms. Wallace, too, you now have another career that you're working on. You're an author as well. Is that correct?
Well, I am. Yes, I have 5 books that I've authored. But I'm also a clairaudient healer, which everybody's going like, what?
I can't hear very well. I didn't catch the last thing.
I'm a clairaudient healer.
Wow.
Basically, they call me a channel. I've been doing it now for 35 years, do private sessions all over the world. But it's been a really interesting life of dichotomy for me because I go do a lot of horror films and then I spend the rest of my life teaching people how to heal themselves from fear. And somehow it works just totally great for me. But it really is a passion of mine, teaching people to take responsibility for their own creation.
Okay.
Oh, that's
And
fascinating.
how did you get involved in that?
How did what?
How'd you get involved in that? Was that something that came natural to you, or was something learned that you wanted to do?
You know, it comes naturally to all of us when we're little. How many kids do you know that have imaginary playmates? And, you know, there's so many books about kids that have been adopted or are riding along with their moms and go, oh, that's how I died in my last life with my last mom. You know, I channeled when I was a little girl. One night, I woke my mom up and said, something's wrong at Grandma's house. We need to go over there. And God bless my mother, Saint Maxine. She got up in the middle of the night, called my grandmother. She didn't answer the phone. So we got in the car and walked over and drove over there. And the cat had gotten up and turned all the stove switches on. And
Oh my God.
So it was filling up with gas. And I don't know how but I do know, because energy, we can connect with any energy we want. Look at this. We're connecting with each other's energy over waves. Well, all energy connects that way. So if you really want to hear the messages, they're all right up here. You just have to ask. But you have to trust yourself to do it. So it was a process. When my husband Christopher died, I dropped to my knees and I said, you know, I don't want to be mad. I don't want to be a victim. I want a way we can heal ourselves. And the very first message came in within seconds, which was use the light within you to heal yourself. And I'm still expanding on what that means.
You turned on your heart light.
Yes. Oh, you're so smart. Yes, I did. And I try to keep it on.
That's great. And we really appreciate all of you taking part in our Mother's Day show here. With some great stories. It's wonderful to get some memories from your time on TV and in film, and also hear what you're doing today. And we really appreciate it. We're going to close out. How about we just do one round where each of you can kind of share a little bit, what advice would you give to parents today that you've gained from either from being a TV mom or from being a real life mom? What's just like something that you would pass along to everyone? We'll start off with Michael Learned, if we could.
Listen to your children. Listen to them.
Yeah.
That's great. Thank you.
Yes.
And Karen Grassle, what would you say?
Michael, that's exactly what I would have said. Listening. And I wanted to say, too, how happy I am to have seen and been with each of you. It's been just wonderful to connect with you. Thank you very much.
We're so lucky. I love you all.
Yeah.
We're terrific women. We really are. We're strong. We've worked hard. We're really fabulous people.
Absolutely.
And we're claiming it,
Including myself.
Absolutely. I would agree with you. Getting to talk to all of you. Ms. Wallace, what would you share with our audience?
Love them unconditionally and always tell them the truth. And
Yeah, good.
Yeah.
you know, if you come from love, that's really what they get. Just respect them and tell them the truth.
We had some very dear friends who were older, a little older, and the dad said to me one day, just treat her like a person. Just let her be a person. You be your person, she'll be her person. Don't try to be anything you're not, because they'll smell it in an instant.
Oh, yes.
Right?
That's great.
That's true.
You can't put on airs around your kids. They instinctively know who you are. And the other thing is, what I found was super important for me was to maintain a sense of humor.
Yes.
Yeah.
You know, the one book that got me through my daughter's childhood, because I got one strong daughter, it's called Yes, Your Teen is Crazy. And it literally says, give up. If it's not worth the battle, give up. Because you think you're dealing with somebody who's rational, but you're not.
So great.
Great. Well, thank you all very much for taking part with us today. Again, we were talking to some famous TV moms here on Channel 6 Central Kentucky Television. And happy Mother's Day to all of you.
Thank
Thank you.
Thank you. You too.
Thank you very much. And this has been Gary White for Channel 6 Central Kentucky Television. Thank you.